I think there's endless benefits in giving people as much autonomy as you can possibly give them.
The price of an error in healthcare is really, really high.
You look at the experience for these guys and they're in a middle management role on the rig, such as a driller. They're not really confident to make the decisions.
You know, the recording, the reporting, and the trending seemed to almost take the front foot to what was actually happening.
I endured broken ribs, but it definitely could have been a potential fatality. And the number one thing, and this was when I was new to the industry and I was just trying to be a team player, was to make sure that no one found out so that the rig didn't lose its safety days.
It's hard to change sometimes, and if you're familiar with a way that works and maybe it's been working relatively okay, you stick with it perhaps, because I guess there's a chance that it might fail.
Imagine a space in which there's no rules, a space in which people can themselves determine the best course of action, a space in which people spontaneously negotiate and collaborate in order to create the safest outcomes for everyone. In this space, a new type of humanity emerges. Nobody is telling them. They figure it out on the spot. We call this emergent behavior. It started out with a normal traffic management system with lights and signs and barriers and lines, and all of that led to a huge gridlock every day and about 10 pretty bad accidents every year. So a traffic engineer came in and said, let's take everything out. And in this square, people now enter and they cannot be not engaged in their own safety. And it's interesting that you make things look riskier and you actually get safer behavior. I became professor pretty early on in my life. I was 34, and so I started flying big jets on the side. And so I'm flying this jet, and of course when you do that sort of work, you learn that compliance and procedures have a very important role to play. But when I started learning that pilots get fired because they're not holding the handrail going down the jet bridge to do the walk around on the platform of the airplane, because they're not wearing a yellow vest when they're out on the ramp, because they carry coffee on board the airplane without a lid on the cup, I'm going, what does anything of this have to do with getting my passengers alive to the next destination? So about 5 years ago, a bunch of guys from industry came together. They knew I was in the country, and they came to us and said, look, we're stuck. We're not improving, and all that we're doing is adding more bureaucracy, adding more compliance requirements, adding more paperwork, and it doesn't seem to help us any. What do we do?
Our safety performance here in Origin with drilling completions was definitely going the wrong way. And the frequency of which people were getting hurt on our sites was definitely increasing.
Failure and getting it wrong is not something we're well rehearsed in. And I think I fell into the trap that most executive directors do, which is we've got all the processes in place, yet we don't really see a shift in the amount of patients that suffer preventable harm in healthcare.
So Woolworths is a business that's been around for 95 years. The way that we've managed safety has been the same throughout that stint.
Safety was a pack that we received every month, and it worked its way down from store management. We had a safety team and they would sort of communicate everything towards us.
Where many of these organizations come from is a place in which human error is a cause of all of their troubles, where people are a problem to control, where people's wide bandwidth and latitude to behave and practice as they see fit is problematic. That needs shrinking, that needs containing, that needs controlling.
With all the paperwork, in all reality, I was in my office probably, I would say, at least 60, 70% of my day.
You're being told all the time to do something, and you think, well, why? It's no good being told by upper management when, they've probably never had the tool in their hand.
You look at a lot of the procedures and policies that we follow. Well, we don't follow them because they don't work, is particularly in this environment. It is the most chaotic, complex environment in an emergency department.
And so we are wasting 15% of our time doing something that is of no clinical value.
Because it came from national, why should they be telling us how to do our job and how to do it safely? And they didn't know what they were talking about because they'd never worked in store.
In order to control people, you tell them what to do through procedures, through trainings, through surveillance, through reminders, through punitive measures.
Somebody's failed to follow procedure, we need more procedures. And we need to punish the person or counsel the person for not following the procedure.
What some of them have even done is declare a war on human error, and they try to stamp out individual human errors, and they try to manage the minutiae of their workers' behaviors and their acts and into the capillaries of their daily existence to try to manage and adjust and control everything that they do.
Why? Why? Why are we doing this? It just makes them crazy, and we go crazy.
There would have been a call to action to say, you guys need to figure out how you're going to do something different.
There's a lot of pressure from within the organisation, within the business to make a change in safety.
I have to do amazing amount of mega data reporting around incidents that happen, but it has no meaning. It's like, 300 of those have happened in a year, but it doesn't mean anything.
Well, why are we actually asking them to do that? And so it made me really think about flipping, how we empower our frontline staff to really grasp this themselves and move it forward without force from the top.
So we were approached about 2 years ago by our National Safety Manager, and he came to us with the concept of the Griffith Uni engaging a study or a trial within our supermarkets where we look at safety and how we manage safety as a business and turn it on its head.
And what we've seen is that safety is not created by imposing it from the top down or sideways from some staff organization that calls itself safety and quality. Safety is created by people who do the safety critical work every day.
We definitely had a safety improvement plan every year, and we had a genuine desire year on year to implement a plan to drive improvement. It used to be a plan that was created in a boardroom with office-based people, nobody from the front line, and it was forward-looking.
The first thing that you need to do as the leader for your business is take accountability for the performance of your business. And when I say performance, that's the operational performance, that's delivering what you're asked to deliver, but it's also the safety performance as well. It's not a safety team's problem to solve, it's not a commercial team's problem to solve, it's actually my problem to solve. And how do I leverage off of the skills or the expertise or the knowledge of those people around me to come up with a solution? So probably like any 12-step program, right? The first thing you've got to do is accept the problem and be willing to change.
There's so many ways to go about solving that problem.
We tried to concentrate on 100 different items to improve our safety.
Some things work, some things don't work.
More is more. So how many different things can we do this year?
We found out through those ideas back then that we just were taken away by too much checklist for each different item of safety and, just taking away our time from the rig.
In 2014, we took a different change and said, well, that isn't working. It's not people from the office ever getting hurt. The risks that are high to our business, they're in the front line.
The fieldwork to me was critical for me to understand how the business runs, and I still think that's very, very important for young engineers to spend time in the field and really understand how the field operates and how activities are executed and the complexity of getting things done in the field. And we write things down on paper in the office, But to actually execute that in the field sometimes is not as easy as we might think it is.
And at that very moment, the eureka moment that we had was, hey, instead of guessing and hypothesizing in a boardroom with office people what we should do, why don't we take a different perspective and look backwards? Because we actually have good data here. And Jamie's approach was, you guys, what we need to do is let's take the buckets of data that we've been collecting, let's dump them all out, let's spread them all across the floor, and let's rebuild them back up and try and see what is it telling us.
The first 2 or 3 things that we found were more than 80% of our injuries were hand injuries or muscle strains. So we chased after those in the first year.
Focus on the few things that'll make the biggest difference, but do them really well.
A great example of that would be our HSE improvement plan, which used to be a multi-page document with 20 or 30 focus areas. The plan lived in a system somewhere and was accessed by HSE professionals and maybe a few managers. So we moved to a HSE plan which now fits on a sticker.
Which was a targeted bullseye with our goal in the middle and the targeted areas of focus around the outside in very simple terms that everybody could understand. It was enough things that everybody could remember, and it was a logo that we could stick everywhere.
The first year, we actually made a huge difference.
We determined what those focus areas should be, but I guess the other key thing that we did is we volunteered and said, look, rather than the safety improvement plan being owned by the safety team, what if the line owned it?
I want it now. I'll have that suture, thanks.
All right, so what do you got for me?
So I've got a 7.5 ETT.
Yep.
So tell us more about this service, Dylan. What do you guys do exactly here?
Yeah, so we really focus on using simulation as a teaching tool, an educational tool.
Mm-hmm. Do you do that here?
Yeah, so we have these purposeful rooms where we can really rehearse and test. This guy's actually used for the Australian Defence Force, and so yeah, so there's a gunshot wound to the face. You can imagine as a new clinician coming into healthcare, this would be just the worst thing you've ever seen, right? And so
it pulses and it bleeds and
that's right. Yeah, very realistic. Yeah, he moans, screams, and so a lot of blood, and he deteriorates like a real patient. And so simulation's great at giving people that exposure and experience on how to deal with these chaotic situations. All of our work used to very much be in the simulation space.
Like here?
Like here. Yeah. So recreating these environments into operating theatres or recovery rooms. More and more now, it's about taking the simulation into the clinical environments.
So in health, you see the same shift to operations as responsible for the creation of safety. It was never actually driven originally by ideology. It was driven by money. This is a big country. This is a big state. And getting everyone to come in centrally and learn how to do particular procedures is very expensive. Lots of hotel nights and flights and everything. You gotta put these people up and they go into the ivory tower to learn how to do things.
Me and a few of the people realized that we're kidding ourselves. Why are we actually here? Why are we doing this? I guess call it human, but we couldn't help ourselves but hold on to that control.
So it's actually a lot easier than what it sounds. A lot of it is really just about flipping the model and not controlling it.
Instead of people coming to us, we're actually going to them now and working with them within the workplace, and we're looking at their needs.
It's about driving for learning rather than compliance.
So we'd expect on any shift, you may see a patient, and I will then say to one of the other consultants, what do you think about this? And he may have a different idea, he may have a better idea, or he may have not have heard of this particular thing, and I'll teach him, and I'll say, well, this is how we do it. What do you think?
Trying to control that into scripted policies and procedures is probably not worthwhile. And what we should maybe look at doing is figuring out where all the variability is and maybe looking at the range rather than the specifics.
The first reply is shock. You're here to do what? You're actually going to ask us what we want?
When we go out and listen to what the people want very far away in Queensland, and we're talking about 4 days to get to some of these sites, they say to us, we don't want the people from the big smoke to tell us how to do our jobs. We do this all the time. Can you just give us some stuff? And so we work together to figure out what that looks like. And there is no cookie cutter approach. There is no single solution that works for everyone. It's not difficult, but it's unique for their needs.
Which is what I love about this new system we're undertaking, asking people what they want to learn, what would help them in their job.
So some people, of course, ask me, Woolworths, but it's a supermarket chain. Well, how do these guys have anything to do with safety? Well, you'd be surprised. They have a high frequency of incidents and lots of strangers on their sites, which presents very, very specific challenges. So I'm sitting in a room with a bunch of their executives, right? And I'm doing a little learning lab, and I'm showing this picture of the shared space, that square. And so they look at this square, and one of those executives, he all of a sudden pipes up and says, what if we do that? And the other guys look at him and go, what do you mean? And he says, what if we take everything out? What would happen to safety in our stores then?
At the moment, within the supermarket brand, we manage from a national level. Ideas are generated, concepts are put together and then pushed down.
From my perspective, there's monthly checks such as checking ice build-ups in the freezer cauldron, or whether the racking is packed safely. Look, these are things that should be done on a daily basis anyway. So to be prompted by National to do that is, I don't think it adds particular value to the store.
Their model had run into trouble as well. More imposition of bureaucracy and compliance didn't improve their numbers at all. They were screaming for something different. This is the Woolworths experiment. We divided a bunch of stores up into 3 conditions, or 3 groups. In one group, we left things as they were. Then we took a group of stores where we took everything out. Of course, there had been a lot of conversations with the regulator preceding the experiment, like 18 months worth of it, and that was necessary as well as ethical clearance. And then in a third condition, not only was everything taken out, but the people involved in these stores were given some training about safety differently, safety 2, ideas about how to do safety differently.
As a team, we identified two key areas.
The main risk for a customer is a slip on the floor. One of the most common ways a customer can slip is by a simple small grape.
The results are really quite interesting. They show that the third condition generates the best results. That group of stores had the lowest safety incidents. They had the best results when it comes to ownership and engagement and locus of control and leadership.
It was fantastic. Being able to just work with your team safety-wise was awesome. Didn't have someone telling you exactly what to say to them. Use our own words and things like that, so it was really good.
It just became something that the team spoke about. I saw instances of a non-management team correcting other staff.
This is not just about safety. What do you have when you have people who are engaged? I think these people will want to stay. These are not people who rotate through your business in 6 months and go, because it is their thing, it's their baby, it's their business.
Making the transition from it being a numbers game and reporting on safety to actually looking at behaviors, relationships, and the culture behind it all, it's a much harder thing to change.
Our core business is not safety. Our core business is drilling and producing gas. So when we come out to talk to the field and we only talk about safety, we're actually devaluing these people's roles.
There's a general belief that as people move through the organisation, they get closer to the top of the organisation, and therefore they have more authority, more power. By moving to field century, what we're saying is actually perhaps you're not the most important person in the organisation anymore. Perhaps it's somebody who may be organisationally a lot lower than you, but actually is the right person to take a decision on this or to solve this problem. So some people absolutely struggle to let that go.
So we shifted from in the order of 20 to 30 HSE people in my team down to I have 2 people in Brisbane and then 3 people in the field now. So I needed to do that because we actually needed to step out of managing safety performance. And while we were in there doing their job, it created no space for them to do their own job.
It's quite easy to dictate what you want. It's harder to sit back and listen and ask what needs to be done.
We introduced learning groups back then as well. You know, we're trying to get the discussion out. The wellsite reps, you know, they were sort of taking it as a bit of a bitch session. But then we went back and asked them, well, what do you guys want to learn? How does that improve our safety on the field?
Very positive response to that. They like being able to do what they do. If you tell somebody to do something, they rebel against you. If you say, show me what you can do, they take it on as a challenge, and it makes them feel more important, and they're doing something, they're accomplishing something. And then you give an attaboy at the end of it, and that goes a long ways.
And there was no divergence or separation of the safety plan and the operational plan, but from the front line's point of view, they were just one and the same, led by the same operational manager.
There's different ranges of things they can do, and certainly if there's a major structural change to a rig or a major change to a piece of equipment, that has to go through a management of change process. Has to go back to the office, has to be reviewed by engineers, etc. But there's a lot of little things, and there's a lot of things that a crew could do on their own and are capable of doing on their own. It was a hand talking to the rig manager about somebody painting a railing, so having someone come out and paint it. And that's the kind of accountability thing we want to change is, well, if you see a railing and it needs painting and you can paint it, grab a can of paint and paint it. You don't need anybody's permission to make it better.
I think the struggle in making that change is that organizations think they have the best intent, and senior management or leaders would be able to come up with better initiatives, but I think it's the fear of change and the loss of control that may be required. And to do that, you really need to trust your people.
This is not just about safety. What do you have when you have people who are engaged, whom you give ownership, whom you give control over their own area? What does that mean? It means that you communicate a very different message to these people as part of the organization, as an important part of making the organization successful.
I have a dream about healthcare and education in healthcare, that every person coming in to the healthcare environment, be they the apprentice hospital joiner, be they the student nurse, be they the early years medical student, be they the first year intern, can know their value and can be able to speak up for what they see needs to happen.
There's a group out there all the time, and they're close, and they're close to all of us. When we're out there, we need to think of them just like we would think of family. You know, those are hard decisions sometimes, and you have to be really thinking about, you know, what am I asking people to do, and is this the right thing?
Going out there, you know, talking to the rig supervisors, you know, the first thing we do go out there is not operations. In fact, I'm telling the truth, very rarely it's the first thing we talk about safety. It's about their families, their kids, how's my family doing, what they've been up to in their time off. I mean, the trust is built through friendships first.
Emotionally and from an individual human point of view, being really in tune with your own behaviour, your own responses, how you trigger, how you respond to other people triggering will make or break where this goes.
I think a lot of it is who's telling you what to do. And the further you are removed from the front line, including management, I mean, I think that is a key factor on whether people are actually going to listen to you. So, as you know, there are ways that we work in an emergency department, but they're not necessarily the ways that management or other senior staff think we're working. It's not that we make up the rules, but we are the people that know what goes on.
As a leader, it shows a humanity, a humility, and a willingness to understand that experts who do the work every day are the ones to rely on to get stuff done and done successfully. And so what's happening now? Everything is taken out, no lines, no signs, everybody just does what they think is right. They only have 1 accident per year, not 8 or 10 like they used to in the old system. And not only that, gridlock is essentially a solved problem. The flow, the efficiency, in other words, has improved dramatically.
You can either invest in trying to preventing a specific type of event going wrong, which is what we normally do in safety and risk management. But you could also say that the opposite of something going wrong is that it goes well. And you can try and invest in something going well, because if it goes well, it doesn't go wrong at the same time. But if it goes well, it also increases productivity and efficiency and maybe quality and a lot of other things. So your investment is not an investment to prevent something from going wrong, but it's an investment in the functioning of the system of the organization. So it's a positive investment. It's not a cost.
It will encourage industry to change because they've seen a shift in the way we do our business, that we're not just going for the black and white, traditional non-conformance, non-compliance inspection of their workplace. But we're also hunting for success and what is achieving a safety outcome and actually congratulating the industry on doing that.
As a leader, I think that I've been able to influence change within the safety space.
Basically improved their whole business over the years, you know. So the day-to-day activities now, we're not talking about being reactive. We're just, you know, making improvements.
Safety is ours. Safety is an operational thing, something that needs to be managed in a store. It just needs to occur day in, day out, the same as opening the doors to trade for our customers.
It's an amazing microcosm every single day. The number of patients that come through the system, it's phenomenal. And they come through happy and well looked after and have great clinical outcomes. The tendency is to ignore all of that and focus on the 0.001% that goes wrong.
Most of the time, I think we do all right. And I think that movement away from, you know, all the kind of stuff that can go wrong to us building on what we do well and can do right is really the way forward in our department.
To make sure we didn't make the mistakes of June last year, where we were allowed to go back when we got busy, we eliminated the roles that used to be in HR coordination. So there's no going back. We are all in, and this is the only way forward. So,
what binds these organizations together is this realization that in order to create safe outcomes, in order to create success, you want to shift the emphasis from compliance and safety and paperwork to operations and ask yourself the question, what accounts for the success of these operations? It introduces a humanity and a deference to expertise and a willingness to listen to your people and learn from your people, and not seeing them as problems that you need to control with more rules and more procedures, but seeing them as the resource to harness. They are the solution. They are the ones who do this work every day. They're going to solve it for you. They're the ones who are going to create success. That's why their approach is safety differently.